1 o'clock. So I'm going to say hello and welcome. And thank you for joining us today. We're really happy that you're here and look forward to spending the next hour together as we explore the world of lucid dreaming. My name is Patty Rozakos, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Psychology at McGraw-Hill. Before we start, I just want to take a few moments to review some housekeeping items. Today's webinar will run for approximately 1 hour with time for questions at the end. Your lines are muted at the moment, so you can ask questions via the Q&A and chat for now. You don't need to wait till the end, send them as you have them. And we'll also try to get some live questions at the end too. The webinar is being recorded and a link will be shared with you via email in a few days. That email will also include a survey link. Your feedback is really important to us, so please take a moment to share your thoughts because we'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's get started. Our session today is all about lucid dreaming, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest, Dr. Dax Urbszat. Dax is an associate professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Toronto and can be found teaching the huge Introduction to Psychology course, as well as courses in social psychology, psychology and law, forensic psychology, and special topics in abnormal psychology. Dax believes strongly in providing an interactive learning environment and is known to make deliberate efforts to facilitate his students' learning experience through demonstrations, class participation, experiential learning, and active student engagement. As evidence of his strong dedication to interactive teaching, Dax has been nominated numerous times for the top 20 in TV Ontario's Best Lecturer competition and has received many awards for teaching. Dr. Dax Urbszat has been a longtime advocate and student of various forms of meditation, including mindfulness meditation, and he's also the co-author of the first Canadian edition of The Science of Psychology and Appreciative View. Today, we're really happy to have him here with us to learn more about the world of lucid dreaming. So with that, welcome Dax, and I will throw it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Patty. Thank you for the very nice introduction. Glad everybody could make it here today to chat with me for a little bit about one of my favorite things in the world. So I guess I wanted to begin by saying I really love talking about lucid dreaming, just for the selfish reason that I'll probably have a lucid dream tonight or tomorrow, given that we often dream about the things we've done in the last 48 hours or so, and the more time and energy I spend talking about this to other people, the more likely it will be that I will encounter it in my dream, and I'll be able to fly tonight. That's the short course. But let's talk in some more detail about the long course. So everybody dreams every night, multiple times. Some people say they don't, but really they're just not remembering their dreams. We tend to remember dreams that are associated with very intense emotional experiences. In general, our attention goes where our emotion is and our memory follows our attention. So when we have a nightmare, we're likely to remember that. When we have some type of amazingly joyous dream, we're going to remember that too, or a dream where we're very sad or very scared. But in general, we don't pay a lot of attention to our dreams. Part of that's the cultural bias that we've set up in Western society. And you know, I don't want to point the finger too much at people like Freud and others, but not that Freud was against dreaming, but he didn't believe lucid dreaming was a thing. And that certainly changed the way we looked at this particular area for probably 100 years. But things have changed, and I'm very happy about this. And I'm going to share some of the scientific and empirical literature and research about the topic. But mostly what I want to do today is give you some tips and steps and procedures on how to lucid dream. I want to teach you how to be able to do this. It's something I do in my fourth year seminar quite a bit. It's part of the seminar that students have to keep a dream journal and learn how to lucid dream. And I have a pretty high success rate, around 85%. So if you put in the work, you will be able to do this. I firmly believe anybody can lucid dream if you make the effort. And if you don't know about it, you're probably going to waste your lucidity if it occurs. Let me just say, all of us have been lucid before. I'm sure that that's the case. There may be some exceptions, but if you've ever been dreaming and said, hey, I think I'm dreaming right now, or this must be a dream, that in and of itself is lucidity. It is simply the awareness that you are asleep and you are dreaming, and you are awake and aware that that's exactly what you're doing. Now, for most of us, we will just wake up at that point, or we will actually slip back out of lucidity into the normal dream state and not pay much attention to it. What I'm suggesting is that we learn to exert some kind of influence and control over what's going to happen in our dreams, what we want to do, at least the themes and things like that. And that this is not only incredible entertainment, one of the most fun things that you can do, but that this has profound impact for the scientific research regarding consciousness, which in my opinion is the prime directive of the science of psychology, which is to understand what is human consciousness, and all the different things we learn about human behavior and animal behavior and others are really moving towards this grander understanding, a question that we can't really answer at this point. I don't want to go too far off of the idea of lucid dreaming, but I just have to start with quickly, and I'm going to violate my rules on slides and my rules on presentations here, and I'm going to just read some stuff, way too much information on here. But this is a summary of the evolutionary theory of dreaming, or dreams as a virtual reality where we can test ourselves, a threat simulation system where we can build up skills to help us survive in the real world, because practicing these things in the real world would be far too dangerous. Look, if everybody dreams, and we think even animals dream, and we do it multiple times a night, and you can't stop us from dreaming, it's so universal, it must be incredibly important to our evolutionary history. It must be incredibly important to either our survival or our reproductive success to have it so evident in all human behavior. And thus it has to have a pretty important purpose. And a lot of the theories of why we dream, and I agree with a lot of the aspects of it. There's probably emotional processing and memory consolidation and information transfer and other things going on in dreaming. But at least one of the purposes, and the one that fulfills this evolutionary imperative, is the idea that we are practicing behavioral strategies and techniques to deal with threat in the real world environment. So just very quickly, the dream dream consciousness is a selective simulation of the perceptual world. It's a virtual reality, but one that we can't really tell the difference between. In fact, when we're dreaming, we often believe it's real, even when fantastical things are occurring. Dream consciousness is particularly specialized in simulating threatening events. So from childhood on, and especially when we're children, we dream mostly about negative events, about being chased by monsters and animals, and about falling and drowning and being buried, and a lot of negative things like that. Why would we dream? Even to this day, children dream about a third of the time about being chased by animals and monsters. How many of you have been chased by an animal in your life that was going to eat you, or certainly not a monster? So we still have this vestige of the evolutionary significance and importance of dreaming following us. So nothing but exposure to the real threatening events will activate the threat simulation system, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system. So we have to honestly believe that what we're encountering is absolutely real. And this is why our brain resists going into the state of lucidity, because if we become lucid and a lion tries to attack me, I'm like, oh, good kitty. I don't get scared at all. But if I believe it's a lion, then my body will go through the actual motions of experiencing this fight or flight panic state, perhaps even to the extent of fear paralysis, where I freeze and can't move. And that's something that you can habituate, you can overcome. Like a firefighter, the first time he runs into a burning building, he's probably pretty stressed out. But after he's done it 100 times, it's not a big deal anymore. So in the same way, as we experience these life-threatening events in our dreams, we learn to habituate the emotional intensity of the experience and develop behavioral strategies that we can use to overcome them. So the threat simulations are perceptually and behaviorally extremely realistic rehearsals of threatening events. And these realistic rehearsals can lead to enhanced performance. And this is regardless of whether or not we explicitly remember the dream, which is an interesting aspect of memory here. We don't have to be conscious or aware that we've done these things in order to reap the benefits, the actual connections or new neural connections in the brain that allow us to act in different ways, or to improve or get better at certain skills. So that's why lucidity isn't necessary for this aspect of dreaming. We'll practice in our dreams whether we're aware of it or not, and we'll be better when we wake up. the environment that we evolved in was a pretty dangerous one. So our human brain has evolved in frequently dangerous events that constituted extreme threats to our survival and our reproductive success as an individual and as a species. So they presented serious selection pressures, and this is what's developed this threat simulation mechanism and system. So keep that in mind as the background, is one of the main reasons for why all human beings dream and why dreaming is incredibly important. And keep in mind, as I have in point 5 here, you don't have to be aware of what you are dreaming in order to gain the benefit of practice. But if you can direct what you're dreaming about, that's a whole nother ballgame. You can choose what it is that you want to learn and practice and do in your dreams. And this is the basis of some of the amazing benefits of lucid dreaming. So what is lucid dreaming? I told you already, you've already done it. A state of consciousness where you're mentally awake and aware that you're asleep and dreaming. And I can tell you, like I said, I don't like to call it dream control. I don't think you're really controlling the dream. There's so many aspects that are outside of your consciousness that are contributing to what's occurring in the dream. But I like to call it dream influence. So I can make decisions about what I want to do in the moment, where I want to go, who I want to see. But I would suggest that largely the vast majority of the experiences in my lucid dreams, I'm not choosing that to happen. It seems quite spontaneous and creative, or at least I'm not choosing it at a conscious level. But I do have the ability to change endings and outcomes. It has given me the benefit of really not having a nightmare in about 30 years, which is pretty cool. If I have a dream that seems to be going in a certain way, I almost always become lucid at that extent and then just go do something else or change the ending. And keep that in mind, because I'm going to address that again in just a moment when we talk about some of the applications of lucid dreaming. So start with the best part of it as far as I'm concerned, adventure and excitement. Man, this is like the best virtual reality you can imagine, right? And instead of playing a video game where you're James Bond or you're the knight who storms the castle, you can actually do those things and be those things. You can have whatever type of adventure you like. For me, and for those who already lucid dream fairly often, you probably know what my favorite thing is. It's to fly. And after I've had a lucid dream where I've been flying, it's incredible. I wake up the next morning just feeling amazing. I believe it has definite impact on my neurotransmitter systems and my sense of well-being in a lot of ways that are probably quite measurable and quantifiable. So flying, I have, been to other planets in space. I've flown down into a volcano in Hawaii. I have done so many amazing and fun things. So adventure and excitement, there is no boundary to this. It is only your imagination that will be holding you back from whatever it is you want to do or try, given the ability to exert influence over what it is that you want to do while you're dreaming. Problem solving and creativity. In fact, that's part of the essence of dreaming and the cognitive view of dreaming, that really some of the things that we're doing are trying to deal with or solve issues and problems we're experiencing in our life. If you're going through a divorce, you'll probably have dreams about divorce. If you're being bullied, you'll probably have dreams about being bullied. Whether or not you're specifically solving the problem or issue in your dream is a bit more debatable, but certainly I can offer anecdotal personal evidence about solving problems or making decisions directly in the lucid dream that have led to all kinds of excellent outcomes and creativity as well. So I'm a musician. I play several instruments, including guitar, and I sing and I write music. I have written a song in a lucid dreams called "The Song That'll Change the World," one that I'm very proud of. So the extent of creativity and the things that you can do in a lucid dream are really, once again, limitless. That's only up to your imagination. I have also here the idea of transcendent. So I had a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends growing up from a very young age as a kid. He died pretty tragically when I was around 18 years old. And in the intervening years since then, I still have lots of interactions with him during lucid dreams. In fact, he actually became what I would call a trigger, so that when I dreamed about him and I saw he was in my dream, I would say, oh, wait a minute, I must be dreaming because I know that you're dead. And so therefore, this can't be real. And that would trigger me to have a lucid dream. And then we would go and hang out and do things together. Now, I don't think it's his ghost or anything. It's just probably just my imagination, but the cliche that people live on in your hearts and in your minds. And that couldn't be more true in this case, because it really feels like I've had spontaneous and real interactions with my friend over these years for all this time. And it's very comforting. It's something that, I don't know how to suggest the benefits, but they are many. And it's not just my friend, it's others as well too, loved ones and others. And even sometimes I hang out with people who aren't dead, but I just don't get to see them very often. And we decide to go and do something. For Transcendent, one other thing I might mention is that sometimes I will ask questions to the void, which is just me in a lucid dream, just asking a question to the blank. And sometimes I'll get an answer and sometimes I won't, or sometimes an answer will come to me at some point. But I definitely think about some of the spiritual and other aspects of this. The Dalai Lama suggests that lucid dreaming is great practice for the transition from this life to the next. I'm not 100% sure what he means by that, but I'm doing lucid dreaming anyway, so I'll get the benefit. I'm happy about that. Whether his take on the world is accurate or not, this is something that has benefits beyond just what I can explain to you, or at least according to others and other viewpoints and other religious beliefs. And certainly with Tibetan Buddhist monks and many meditators, that's certainly not them, but we know many of the Tibetan Buddhist monks were what were called dream yogis. So they've been practicing this, and we have written evidence of it for about 5,000 years. So they know a lot of the tricks that are quite good to do. And I'll mention a couple as we go through it when I try and suggest how to do this. Therapy and treatment. I have some slides for the next three: skill practice and improvement, and just some of the implications for neuroscience and the study of consciousness. Let's have a look at some of these. Oh, I should definitely mention Dr. Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University. He runs the original studies where he shows somebody is asleep and hooked up to a EEG electroencephalogram, and they're taking physiological measures to ensure this person is indeed asleep. And they are signaling in their sleep state in a lucid dream. They are using predetermined eye signals to signal to the awake researcher that they are indeed having a lucid dream at this moment. And this is some case studies. This begins in 1980. By 1986, there's been a slew of studies and empirical research with larger samples showing that indeed this is something that we can do. Let me return to this idea at the end, because the study by Konkoly that was released last week is just a step beyond that and really exciting, and I guess fortuitous that I'm giving this talk at this time. So anything with LaBerge, I recommend his books and his research, and of course the Lucidity Institute. You can get all kinds of information there. He is what I consider to be the grandfather of the scientific movement for lucid dreaming, and very happy for all of the research and things that he has been involved with. So one of the aspects of lucid dreaming from a psychological perspective is clinical psychology and treatment, and it has been thought of as a potential treatment for nightmares, and has been used as a potential treatment for nightmares for more than 20 years now. And now we're actually moving even further in this direction and looking at using it for the treatment of things like post-traumatic stress disorder, at least running through the flashbacks or the nightmares that are experienced in PTSD and reliving them and changing the outcome, or reliving them in a way that the outcome isn't as negative. So a type of, I guess, exposure. Which leads me to think about some of the other potential future applications, like for exposure therapy for treating phobias or for helping individuals with social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and far beyond these applications. But this, we're starting slow and working towards it. And I think that we're going to see a lot more research on the use of lucid dreaming for different aspects of therapy and treatment to assist people in dealing with a whole host of different issues and problems. And as I said, that's been going on for quite a while now. It's ramping up now. And one of the reasons it might be ramping up has to do with the study I'm going to talk about in just a second by Hobson. First, let me talk about skill practice in lucid dreaming. So Erlacher, German researcher who has lots of empirical research and studies being done. There is a plethora of anecdotal evidence from all types of sources and case studies and correlational evidence, but it's really trying to develop the empirical evidence that's necessary. And of course, here's a great example of that, where they had subjects practice a skill of just throwing a coin into a cup, and then they had them practice it when they were asleep and lucid dreaming, and the control group did not. And of course, what they found was there was a significant difference for those who were able to have a lucid dream and practice in the lucid dream. They indeed showed significant effects. They had practice effects. They were better at it. This is the beginning of some of the empirical research, and we're starting to do more of this now. And I should mention that Erlacher is probably most well known as a sports psychologist and has the idea of applying this to teaching and training. Of course, we know the great advances that have been done in sports psychology regarding visualization and imagery, and this is just going to take it a step even further. I can tell you from my personal experience, I have used lucid dreaming to practice martial arts. I've been a martial artist since I was a kid, for all my life. I use it to practice guitar. I used it to practice my job talk that got me my job at University of Toronto. So I have used skill practice in my lucid dreams quite a bit. I think about it this way. When I was practicing my job talk, everything, of course, went great and perfect, as it almost always does in my lucid dreams, because I have that intention and I have that influence to ensure there's going to be good outcomes. So it's almost like when I went in to do the actual talk, I was going in with the confidence that I'd already done this talk and I'd already done it incredibly well, almost like the job was already mine. So I really had, I believe anyway, I really had the confidence that made it easy for me to do well and impress others to get this job. It's like the difference between doing something for the first time and hoping it'll turn out well versus doing it for the second time after the first time went really well. The difference in confidence and performance is probably something that is quite important and can make a clear difference. This is going to the extreme now at this point. A German researcher, Paul Tolley, so one of the grandfathers of the study, the scientific study, oneironology. So we talk about lucid dreamers as oneironauts. An astronaut is somebody who goes in and explores the outer world. An oneironaut is somebody who explores the inner world. So oneironology is this study of the inner world using lucid dreaming. Anyway, Paul Tolley reportedly learned to skateboard, ride a unicycle, and even snowboard without ever practicing other than in his lucid dreams. And he goes out with a bunch of friends the first time he's going to snowboard, and he can actually snowboard without bindings, which I'm told is a pretty tricky thing to do. Now, of course, this is anecdotal evidence. Paul Tolley might be naturally really good at all these skills, or he may have lied and practiced without telling anybody. But this is something that was witnessed by other researchers, and Erlacher is one that has talked to people who actually have seen him do these skills. My son was saying, well, why don't you try learning violin in a lucid dream? And I was thinking, yeah, maybe that's something I would like to do. I told him my problem is every time I get in a lucid dream, I just want to fly and do something fun. So I don't know if I would have the discipline to get down and actually practice something, but I'm definitely considering that as something in the future to do in my lucid dreams, to pick some skill that I don't have and to practice it only in my lucid dream and see if it translates to the real world. Certainly, I've seen practice with skills I already know and I've improved them. but this is a step beyond and something that really speaks to, what type of practical benefits we can receive from something like lucid dreaming. Can you imagine? Like I was saying to Patty before, we sleep for a third of our lives. What are you doing when you're sleeping? What are you up to? Are you getting anything done? Are you practicing anything? Are you doing any work? Not that we need to be working all the time, but this kind of work is actually pretty fun and quite remarkable. Okay, I got to get to the showing you how to do it stage. So I'll go through this pretty quickly. It's just very exciting. I'll tell you a fast anecdote. It was a number of years ago, and I've been a proponent of lucid dreaming since before really people were talking about it. So at least for 30 years now, when I was just in my last year of high school and then first year undergrad of university is when I began doing lucid dreaming, and it wasn't talked about very often. And I remember when I first became a professor and I was talking to reps for book companies and saying, yeah, why don't you have anything about lucid dreaming in consciousness? And a lot of people weren't aware of it, didn't know about it. One of the issues and reasons was in the neuroscience community, big names like Alan Hobson said, dreams are just random firing in the brain. There's nothing going on there. They're not important. And there was really this cultural and scientific idea that dreams weren't very important. It's part of the activation synthesis hypothesis that dreams are just us trying to make sense of random neural firing. And of course, I didn't believe that for a second, especially with the importance of lucid dreaming. So I'm doing an interview for MISC magazine. I'm a professor at this point. It's for MISC magazine, MISC. It's been a while now. And I do the interview, talk about lucid dreaming, and then they send it to me a few months later. I actually get the hard copy. And I'm like, oh, they interviewed 5 people for this. One of them's Alan Hobson. And I'm like, of course, they're going to have point counterpoint. And I open up, read mine. I think they did a good job. I'm happy with it, which isn't always the case when you get interviewed or published for a story. But this was done very well, good scientific magazine. And then I turned to Alan Hobson expecting to hear the counterpoint. And what I find out is that he has learned how to lucid dream. And now he is, instead of talking about activation synthesis hypothesis or that dreams are meaningless, he's now one of the great proponents of using lucid dreaming in research on consciousness and understanding consciousness. And so for a decade now, it's really changed how the scientific community and everybody is looking at this phenomenon. Now we're seeing a great deal of research being done here, although I must say, much more research being done in Europe and other countries than in North America. We still have that cultural bias against the importance of dreaming here in the West. But as I mentioned, it is changing and changing quickly. And one of the other reasons is this study by Conkley that just came out really last week. What they've shown is you can have real-time dialogue between experimenters and people who are asleep and having a lucid dream. And they did this in a few different countries, in Germany and the Netherlands and France, and I think in the US as well too. And they use some different methodologies, but one, for example, in the German lab, they're tapping Morse code. So the person is asleep and they're being monitored in the sleep lab to prove that they're asleep with psychophysiological measures. And then they are beeping the Morse code, that's SOS if you don't know your Morse code. So they beep out the Morse code, and one of the subjects reports they were, getting their bus ticket in their dream, and they were lucid, and they start seeing the light flashing, and they're like, oh, that's the Morse code we're supposed to expect. This is a message from the researcher. Okay, I need to concentrate. I need to see what this is. All right, it's 3 + 1 is the question that they're answering. I know it's 4. And then they're going to answer by going left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right with their eyes. This is predetermined. And of course, that means the answer is 4. And so we're getting people who are asleep and in the lucid state, in the REM stage of sleep, and they're dreaming, and they are able to communicate answers back to the researchers. In the Netherlands and in France, they actually just ask questions, yes or no questions. And they would answer by either using the zygomatic muscles for smiling or the corrugator muscles for frowning. That would be no, this would be yes. And they would answer these questions. So now we have a case where you can actually talk to people while they're asleep and while they're dreaming about their dreams. You don't have to wait till they wake up and deal with retrospective accounts of what just happened. And this really has so many applications I don't have time to talk about all of the potential applications, but you can certainly imagine them. And we're going to see a lot more about this research and about lucid dreaming and the study of consciousness and in neuroscience. This is really just a whole new avenue for research that seems quite limitless at this point. I've never been more excited about lucid dreaming and where it is in the scientific community. It's never been an issue for those of us who've been lucid dreaming for a long time. We didn't, we did it, enjoyed it, knew what it was, but now to see how the scientific community has come around after having such a negative, really looking at this as a paranormal phenomenon for so long. Like I said, it's very exciting for someone like myself and of course, many others. All right, let's carry on now. This is the good stuff. How to have a lucid dream. It's really not that difficult. Like I told you, we've all probably had a lucid dream before many times. Now, the idea is to intentionally have a lucid dream. That's the trick. So, or at least even if you're not expecting it or intending it, that when it does occur, that you're ready to deal with it. I can tell you about my first intentional lucid dream. I was sleeping somewhere other than my home, which I'll suggest is sleeping in a different place or position. I'll explain that in a moment. And I had this lucid dream. I've been reading about it. I don't think I was actively trying it, but it was certainly something that was on my mind. I was lucid. I got so excited, and then I woke up. And that's pretty typical for individuals in a lucid dream, especially just that I got so excited and woke up, but I determined, when it occurred again, and I felt like it would, I was going to do better. I wasn't going to blow it next time. I was going to try and have some type of influence and control over what I did in my dream. So I'll tell you about my second lucid dream in a minute. Let me just give you some of the original tips of how to have a lucid dream. One of the best things you can do is dream journaling. So writing down your dreams, even if you don't remember them, if you just takes a couple weeks to journal your dreams, you will find that you will start to remember many more. One of the reasons we don't remember our dreams is we're just not paying attention. If you don't pay attention, you don't remember. When you pay attention, you're much more likely to remember. So anytime you wake up, and of course, you should know we wake up multiple times during the night after each REM stage. Anytime you wake up, at the night, in the morning, whenever it is, try to wake up without an alarm so you get in that big last REM stage that we have during sleep. Don't move, don't open your eyes. Just ask yourself, what was I just dreaming about? And you'll probably remember something. And then just write it down, jot it down quickly. You wake up at night. I like to use my phone. I just put it on the notes section and I just write it in. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have written and then, and it won't make any sense at all. Literally, it'll just be a jumble of letters. But it doesn't matter. What I've done is I've put my attention towards understanding my dreams, knowing that I'm dreaming, and that will make it more likely that in my dream, I will put some intention towards that as well. Also, you can look for dream signs. So things that happen to recur. I mentioned to you that my friend who died when I was younger, he is an absolute dream sign. When I see him, I know this can't be real, right? This can't be the real world because you're not alive anymore. And you can look for people who've passed away or things that you know are not the case and note them. So keep your dream journal. I recommend that some point in the day or before you go to sleep, you just look over quickly and see what you dreamed that day. And just look if there are any recurring themes or recurring individuals that you can use as a dream sign. And keeping a dream journal, even if you're not trying to lucid dream, is something that has benefits in and of itself. Reality testing. This is really a form of mindfulness. It's about being in the moment at the time and trying to test whether or not you're awake or dreaming. And I have a slide next, so I'll take you through all my favorite reality testing techniques and show you how they work. The number of times that you do reality testing in the day will increase the likelihood that you will dream about reality testing or do a reality test in your dream. Once again, we often dream about the things that we've been doing in the last 48 hours. If you do a lot of reality testing, you're more likely to do reality testing in your dream. And when you do it in your dream, you're going to realize that you can't be awake because it's violating some fundamental rule of physics like gravity. Pre-sleep suggestions, LeBerge refers to these as mild mnemonic-induced lucid dreaming. So I'll put myself in a nice meditative state. And then I will just write down in my dream journal or before I go to sleep, or I will say to myself in a meditative state, tonight while I'm dreaming, I'll remember to recognize that I'm dreaming and become lucid, and I will fly. So I'll say something to myself, give myself a pre-sleep suggestion. Or in my dream journal before I go to bed, I'll write down, tonight I'll remember to recognize that I'm dreaming, and I will become lucid, and I will, I don't know, fly to Alaska, whatever. I'll do something. I don't often, sometimes I put what I want to do. Usually I just put, I'll become lucid, and then whatever happens from there, I'm happy to deal with it. But sometimes I actually put something down. I said sleep in a different place or position. So the Tibetan dream yogis used to hog tie themselves. So they would literally tie up their wrists and then tie their tied wrists to their ankles and tie up their ankles. That's what we call hog tying. So you got wrist and ankles tied, and there's a rope connecting wrist and ankles. So if you stretch out at all, it wakes you up. So they're sleeping in this kind of fetal position, and anytime they would stretch or move, it would wake them up. Now this puts them in such a light sleep that it facilitates their ability to become lucid, according to them. I don't recommend anybody tie yourself up and hog tie yourself, all right? Fair enough, I'm sure it works, but you know what also works? Just sleeping in a different place. Why does this work? Well, when you sleep in your regular bed, you are used to it. You've habituated all the sounds and noises and things that happen all night long, so you get a nice deep sleep. That's why sleeping in your own room, in your own bed is probably most relaxing for most people. You go sleep somewhere new, a hotel room or somewhere else like that, and that is an excellent opportunity for lucid dreaming because you're not going to sleep quite as soundly. For me, even if you're not going away, one thing that I like to try once in a while that my wife doesn't like at all, I will sleep in the opposite position. So I'll put my feet up where my head go and my head down where my feet go. And sometimes that's enough to keep me from being in the habituated, relaxed state I am when I sleep in the normal position. And but really go sleep on a couch or something like that. That'll work just as well too. And you have to be, serious about wanting to have a lucid dream to do this, but it's not that big a deal, and it is quite effective. This is one that I tend to use a fair amount, probably because my first lucid dreams were in different places than where I usually slept. So not all of these are going to work exactly the same for everybody. You want to find the ones that work best for you. You can pile them on and use them together. I definitely do dream journaling, reality testing, mild, and sleeping in different positions, and wake back to bed. I do all of them. And let me talk about number 5, and then number 6 I haven't done yet, although I've been trying for about 20 years, but we'll see. I'm not giving up yet, no way. Wake back to bed, probably the most effective of the strategies. So, and you want to do this obviously when you probably don't have to go to work or have a big day the next day. So sometime on the weekend, set your alarm to wake up a couple hours before you need to wake up, and then stay up for about 30 or 40 minutes. Reading, doing something, whatever it is, and then crawl back into bed and go back to sleep. I like doing that. I found that I like doing it anyway, right? Like you get up and you're groggy and like, but going back to bed and getting that nap, that last part of your sleep, which is going to be almost all REM sleep, is quite enjoyable anyway. But what you can do is go directly into a dream, or sometimes you can wake up out of a dream and then go back to sleep right into that dream and become lucid, knowing that it's a dream when you go back into it. But wake back to bed is great because you're going to go back into it and you're going to have the intention to have a lucid dream. And this is one of the ways that has worked best for me. So when I'm really intent on having a lucid dream, this is the one that I'm going to use. Waking induced lucid dreaming, or wild, this is the ability to enter into the lucid dream state from a from a meditative state. And so once again, Tibetan dream yogis, this is the technique that many of them have mastered. So they can fall into a very deep meditative state and then enter the lucid dreaming state from there. Like I said, I've been trying this for a long time. I'm not sure if I'm missing something. There isn't as much information on how to do this as there are the other ones, because this one's pretty tricky to do. But it's something that I will continue to make an effort at. But really, I suggest you concentrate on the first 5 because they're all easy and effective. These have been shown to be effective empirically as well as anecdotally and correlationally. So when we have all three pieces of evidence, all three types of evidence suggesting the same thing, that's when I tend to have much greater confidence in what's going on. Okay. My second lucid dream, and it was a good one. So I'm in Africa, I think. And it's like there's a road down the middle here, and on each side there's a row of huts. And they're huts that are off the ground on wood supports, probably for predators, I assume. And I'm standing there, and this primal looking chicken, I know it's a chicken, doesn't look like a regular chicken I know, but in my dream, I know it's a chicken, and a bunch of little baby chicks crosses the road in front of me and walks up the ramp into one of these huts. And so I follow the chickens into the hut. There's nobody in the hut when I get in there. It's just completely empty. But I'm like, I'm lucid dreaming. This is a dream. I'm doing it. What am I going to do now? And it was such an amazing rush and feeling. I phased right through the wall like it wasn't there, like I was a ghost. And I flew up into the air and I started flying, and it was such a rush. I was so excited. And I remember saying to myself very clearly, I'm going to fly around the earth at the speed that the earth turns and revolves around, so that I will never be in darkness again. I'll just follow the earth as it spins around, so I'm always in the sun. And it was just such an amazing, amazing feeling. 10 years later, I'm in I think my final year of my doctoral program at University of Toronto, and I'm doing a paper on lucid dreaming. And this dream comes to me again. I'm kind of remembering it as I'm talking and writing about lucid dreaming for this fairly long assignment, this paper that I'm doing. And it's just like that. It pops into my head like I've known it all along, this complete understanding of what this lucid dream meant to me. Why did the chicken cross the road? Well, let me start first. It's Africa. That's the birthplace of humanity and consciousness. So this is really the beginning. Why did the chicken cross the road? The old joke, right? To get to the other side. Why did this primal chicken cross the road? To take me to the other side of consciousness, which is exactly what it did and where it took me. And I phased through the wall to show that there's no boundaries or limits, that the physical rules don't apply to me, and that I was able to fly. And flying is absolutely my #1 favorite thing to do when I'm having a lucid dream. And to fly around the world as the earth rotates, staying in the sun all the time, is my definition of enlightenment. I have been enlightened, or the light bulb has been turned on forever. I will now be able to intentionally use this skill and enter into this state of consciousness for the rest of my life. And yeah, it's been profound and quite amazing. And I thought to myself, what an amazing tutorial on lucid dreaming and the symbol and what it means without even being aware of it. I'm giving myself this amazing tutorial. And maybe it's because I botched the first time I became lucid and really wanted to. I don't know. But looking back on it at that moment, I was like, wow, there really is information being transferred to me from my unconscious to my conscious. And I started to understand and learn the language of my dreams. It's a right brain hemisphere. It communicates in pictorial metaphors. But if you can understand that language, you can learn a great deal of what your dreams are trying to tell you, which is really you, your unconscious, trying to share information with your conscious as one aspect of what we do in dreaming. Okay, I'm getting close to the end here, so let me go back and talk about the reality testing. So I recommend you do this many times a day as you can think of. Only takes a second. The first one, there is glitches in the matrix. In your lucid dreaming world, it is not like the real world. And one of the things is that gravity doesn't necessarily operate properly. So I suggest to you, just anytime, whether people are around or not, it's up to you, right? If you're embarrassed or not, but just jump. Anytime you're awake and you jump, gravity's going to work. I doubt there'll be any exceptions. In your dream, in the dream world, gravity doesn't have that type of consistency. So when you jump, it will feel different. You may float, you may go high, something weird might happen. In general, test gravity, because gravity doesn't work very well in a lucid dream. So that's one of the ways. So if I jump up and I come down, I'm like, okay, I'm awake. If I jump up in my dream, I'm going to know I'm dreaming and become lucid very quickly. The other, I told you, it's a right brain phenomena, which means for almost all of us, our left brain houses our language. And because of that, language does not hold the same type of structural capabilities and consistency. Meaning, if I look at this, it says reality testing at the top of the slide. I look away, I look back, it still says reality testing. Well, I know I must be awake, because it wouldn't stay the same if I was dreaming. If I was dreaming and I looked at that, I looked away and I looked back, it would have changed. It would have changed in some fundamental way. So I just did a reality test by looking at reality testing. I know if it says the same thing when I look away and look back, then I know I'm awake right now. If it changes, then I know that I'm dreaming. Some people do this with clocks and things like that, though I find language, numbers seem to be a little more stable than language, at least for me. Time relativity as well. So look at a clock, look away and look back. It will be wildly different. A whole bunch of time will have passed. It won't be the same. But like I said, in my experience, and I've had a few others who I've talked to say that they looked at the clock, looked away and looked back and it was the same. Not that that can never happen. It's not likely to, but time relativity certainly is another key clue or another glitch in the program that can allow you to realize that you're dreaming. Remember, our brain is trying to keep us from being aware that this is a dream so that we can practice these scary things that happen to deal with threat in the environment. But right now we're going to override that program and bring our waking consciousness into this moment. Your dream is still trying to convince you that it's real. So it's really, that's what you're battling against, this own internal struggle. Staring at your hands aren't necessarily going to look right in a dream like they do when you're awake. I recommend the first two reality testing. You can do them, 50 times a day and it won't take you a minute. And they're really, really good ones. These other ones are others that others have suggested. I don't use them as much, but you want to find the ones that work for you. So staring at your hands is one, looking in a mirror and your reflection isn't going to be right. Touch solid objects. If you can put your hand through a wall, you're probably not sleeping. I mean, you're probably not awake. You're probably asleep and dreaming. And of course, breathing too. If you hold your mouth and nose and you can still breathe, then you must be dreaming. So these are some of the reality tests that we do. Once again, do as many reality tests as you can do a day. Keep your dream journal. Write in your dream journal that you want to become lucid and maybe something that you want to do in lucidity. And this is your best steps towards achieving the beginnings of lucid dreaming and having dream control and doing it intentionally. Okay, I just put some suggested readings in here. Patricia Garfield talks about creative dreaming all the way back to the Tibetan dream yogis. This is really an extensive look at lucid dreaming over time. And there's LeBerge, one of his original books, Lucid Dreaming, excellent. LeBerge and Reingold, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. This is a book that's really a how-to, so it gives more in-depth detail on how to have a lucid dream if that's what you're interested in. It's just a tiny little book, but it's really good. And then I have Antonio Zadra, who is a researcher at, used to be at University of Montreal, or I think he might be, used to be at McGill, maybe at University of Montreal. I can't remember which, but one of those. And of course, in our new textbook, The Science of Psychology and Appreciative View, I was able to write a whole bunch of stuff about lucid dreaming and put in there, a step-by-step guide about how to achieve lucidity, which I hope lots of people will take advantage of. I just love sharing this information. When I teach somebody and they have a lucid dream, it's incredibly gratifying for me, and I can see in their eyes how amazing it is for them too. So, all right, that's all I will talk about for now, although I could go on all day. But let's take some questions while we still have time.
Dax, that was great. Thanks so much for sharing more information about the world of lucid dreaming. And thanks everyone for joining us. As Dax mentioned, we're going to take some questions right now. You can use the chat. You can use the Q&A window. Raise your hand, the little hand icon. We can take you off mute as well, so we can chat with Dax directly. Dax mentioned he's the author of the new first Canadian edition of The Science of Psychology and Appreciative View. If you'd like to take a look at the resource, please reach out. I'm going to drop my email address in the chat so you've got it. And let's take a look at some of the questions. There were some that have that came through while we were chatting. Let me grab the one here. It came a little early. Near the beginning, someone had asked Dax when you were speaking about the why do we dream, and they'd asked about the enhanced performance part? And does any of the mental response carry into real life? And you did speak to that a little bit. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so look, the empirical research is actually pretty impressive now. And the idea is simply this: when we learn, we're just creating new neural connections in the brain. And that happens exactly the same when we're dreaming as it does when we are awake. So you probably aren't going to be able to build your biceps up really big if you dream about lifting weights, although there is some aspect that you can tone your core by working out in your dream. That's been suggested, at least anecdotally anyway. But I get the feeling like if you're lifting weights in your dream, it's not going to build your biceps up. You got to rip the muscle and build it up in real life. But if you're trying to learn a skill, like for me, like playing guitar or like learning how to golf or something like that, and these are skills that aren't about muscle development. They're about brain development and about, I suggest the myelinization or the smoothing out of the neural circuitry that allows the messages to be sent more efficiently and more quickly. So there's evidence both that we're learning certainly mentally. So people like Stickgold have shown that students are learning formula to algebra questions in their sleep, and they're able to apply it the next day, even if they're not aware that they've actually done this. And that's just in dreaming. That's not even in lucid dreaming. In lucid dreaming, no question. Like I said, I've written songs in a lucid dream that I've woken up and then been able to play. And people have all kinds of evidence of both mental and physical skill development. Once again, I mentioned Paul Tolley, which is, learning how to snowboard without bindings, without ever practicing. That may be something I'm going to take on if I can get the discipline and have enough lucid dreams to try something like that.
Thanks, Dax. Robert Nellis shared, thanks so much for the wonderful talk. Are you familiar with Stephen, and I might be saying the name wrong, Eisenstadt, and what are your thoughts about his work?
Well, that would be a quick answer. No, I'm not familiar. So I'm gonna Google that right after now. So that's why I love doing these talks. People are gonna point me to information that I'm not aware of at this point. So you want to spell that for me, Patty?
I will. It's Aizen.
Eisen?
Okay. Eisenstadt. Yep.
Okay.
Eisenstadt.
Sounds German again to me. So probably a lot of German researchers doing research in lucid dreaming right now. Very exciting.
Great. Is there a way to keep from waking when you realize you're dreaming? I often feel like the dream slips away and struggle to hold on.
The dream does slip away. So two things you can do to stay in a lucid dream. One is stare at your hands, and that will allow you to remain in lucidity, or at least it does for many people. And the one that I like to use that works for me is when I feel like I'm waking up, and it's actually a feeling like I'm being pulled up, jump up and spin around. And this does two things. When you spin around in your lucid dream, when you stop spinning, you'll be somewhere else. It's like some kind of, mental teleportation device. So if you're somewhere you don't like, just spin around and you'll end up somewhere else. But so staring at the hands or jumping up and spinning around, both of these have been, at least anecdotally, shown to allow you to stay in your lucid dream longer. And that's a trick that I use quite a bit, spinning around. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Would encouraging lucid dreams be effective for people who have PTSD related nightmares? I know you spoke a little bit about that. Could you talk a little bit more about the treatment for nightmares?
So same thing again, and I referenced the 2016 study, but there really are a number of studies now that you can look at. There's a fair amount of empirical research where they are using lucid dreaming to assist people in running through some of the scenarios that are traumatic for them. And like I said, there's a couple different ways. One is just to replay the traumatic incident again and again to habituate the emotional intensity. So that you can talk about it, so that you can think about it when you're awake and not have to have the overwhelming emotional experience that comes with it. That's what we call emotional processing. So really good for that. And another is, once again, changing the outcome, which they say increases our locus of control or our feelings of our ability to have control over this. It changes the outcome. So instead of, it ending in a terrible outcome, you switch it up and the outcome's actually one that is better. And this is another way to kind of short circuit the persistent memory that we often have when we have traumatic incidents. Yeah, there's much more to it, certainly, and we're going to do more with it as well. I'm very excited about the use of lucid dreaming for in treatment context, in a clinical context.
Thank you. I've never tried to lucid dream, but I often wake up with new ideas and solutions. Do you ever intentionally use dreams to solve problems?
Yes, I absolutely do. So I'd say this thing now to everybody. I try not to make any big decisions without sleeping on them. And I would like to have a lucid dream before I made every decision, but unfortunately, I'm not that good at having them. I don't have them as often as I would like. But I like to think that I've thought about it and dreamed about it. But no question, I have used lucid dreaming to deal with issues that were bothering me, to come up with solutions for research, for example, and research questions that we're doing, to make decisions about whether or not to do certain projects, like do a textbook or something like that, or various other things. I've used it for personal issues and problems, and it has been helpful at a personal level in almost all my relationships. Just in, how can I do this better? What would be better? What would they like? What would they want for their birthday? I have asked in lucid dreams and come up with some pretty cool presents and stuff like that. So not just problems, but or not just negative problems, but solutions to all kinds of different situations. And yeah, I find I really have so much confidence when I encounter it in my lucid dream, because of the history of positive reinforcement I've gotten from after lucid dreams, like getting this job, like other things that I've engaged in, like improving my ability to do something before a belt test, right? So in martial arts, you do a belt test, which is a pretty big ordeal, and running through all of my forms and running through all of my applications for defenses and things like that. And, I definitely do not want to pull this towards the parapsychological aspect of it, which there is quite a bit in lucid dreaming, and which is part of the reason why I think the scientific community has some reserve about treating this as the actual phenomena that it is, or using it in a more mainstream way. But many times I have dreamed the thing and practiced it in my dream, and then it occurs exactly like I thought it would, exactly like I dreamed it in real life. I can tell you a story too about, I'm a big martial artist. I mentioned I'm a big UFC fan. So a fighter named Johnny Hendricks is fighting someone named Martin Kampmann, both really top tier martial artists. And I'm expecting this to be a good long fight because they're both very good. And Johnny Hendricks comes out and knocks out Martin Kampmann in about 10 seconds, nothing that anybody ever expected. And Johnny Hendricks is being interviewed right after in the center of the ring. And he says, I dreamed this like 2 days ago, that I did this move and hit him with it. And here it just happened exactly like I dreamed it. And you could tell he was incredibly surprised. He wasn't expecting that his dream would come true, but he dreamed it and it happened just as he dreamed it. And that wasn't even a lucid dream. That was just kind of, I suppose a regular dream. So it makes me really, really think about some of the potential applications for practice in a lucid dream, and how it can make the outcomes much more likely. So I think, if you're a sports psychologist like Urlacher, you're definitely on the right path, thinking about using this to train athletes.
Great, thank you. We've got time for one more. Wondering if you've looked into hypnagogic hallucinations. I experience these quite often. I wake up and see a figure in the room and watch it disappear, and my brain tells me right away it is not real. I know it is not a dream state, but it feels like one.
Yes. Well, look, the hypnagogic and hypnopompic imagery is pretty rare. It's a small percentage of the population who experiences them. It is an extension of the dream state. Often people have these hypnagogic images and they're still experiencing sleep paralysis. So their body is still paralyzed from the sleep paralysis of REM sleep, which prevents you from acting out your dreams, very adaptive, but you've woken up quickly and you're still paralyzed. And that's really scary. It happened to me as a kid. And literally, I understand how people talk about alien abduction, because it felt to me like someone was grabbing me by my feet and pulling me up through the roof, which is really, really scary. I never left my bed, but that's what it felt like. And it really freaked me out. Of course, I learned what it was then in university. I had another one while I was still in university. I've only had it happen to me twice in my life, but then I knew what it was. And then then the scientist in me came out. I was like, okay, this is cool. I can't move, but I can think. Let me look around. Is there anything going on? Let me experience this. And I really enjoyed the experience. Maybe that's why it's never happened again. I don't know. But if you have these type of images while you're paralyzed, people often have a terrible fear about it. And it conjures up, of course, all types of historical ideas of, the succubus and incubus and the witch who sits on your chest and keeps you from breathing. And a lot of different cultures have myths that directly correlate to this idea of not understanding what sleep paralysis is. But yeah, with the hypnagogic imagery, for many, it's very scary. But if you understand what it is, then once again, you don't have to be afraid of it at all. I hear a lot of people when I talk about sleep paralysis, they're like, yeah, I have that and it really scares me. And I'm like, well, next time just treat it like it can't hurt you. It's perfectly natural. There's nothing wrong with it. Treat it like an experience rather than something to be afraid of, and you'll experience it very differently. So with your hypnagogic imagery, if once again, you're not afraid, you know what it is, you know it's normal. It's just an extension of dreaming. So you probably have a pretty good imagination. We see some correlation between hypnagogic imagery and creativity and imagination. So just enjoy it. Yeah.
That's great. We're at 2 o'clock, but Dax, one more came in. If I'll throw it out really fast. We heard about people that are able to meet other people both during their lucid dreams. I know a friend who's able to do this with their sister. They plan it and arrange to meet in a specific time or place.
Well, somebody had to bring this up. This is what I said. I didn't want to talk about the paranormal aspect of it, but yes, there are all kinds of anecdotal evidence and even some that show some fairly unequivocal evidence. In other words, they've written down a word beforehand, they've mailed it off, they've received it back, they've gone with this person, they've written the word on some board, they've met in a lucid dream, they've gone back to woken up in their different houses and both written down the same word and then compared it. This is some scary stuff. In LaBerge's laboratory, they had people asleep in the dream laboratory, and then there were 10 objects. They would put one inside the fridge, and the person would, in their lucid dream, go to the kitchen, open up the door and look at the fridge and see what was in there. And they were getting it right, I think about 4 out of 10 times, which of course it should be 1 in 10. So there's something going on there. I don't want to address that because really we can't explain it. The best explanation is that they're making it up, though I don't believe that. So there's other things going on that we just don't understand at this point. Let me say this, in my seminar course, my Psych 440 course where I teach students to do lucid dreaming, I have a running program or a running idea that I'm going to meet them. So anytime I have a lucid dream, I go to a specific room in the university that I've told them all about, IB 110. I'm going to go there. I'm going to write something on the board, and you're going to come and look at it. And when you come back to class, you're going to tell me what it is. And so this year I wrote Halloween on the board, and one of the students who had a lucid dream made it to the room, and she came back and said, I'm not sure, something orange, something scary. And that was close. So it wasn't Halloween, but the pumpkin, the scary, that's probably something I would call a miss. I wouldn't call that a hit. But it's interesting, and we're trying to do it, and we'll keep at it. And really, at some point, I want to, like somebody has their sister do it, I want to find somebody who's a dedicated lucid dreamer and try to meet up with them in a lucid dream and see if we can replicate some of these things. But once again, this is something that goes beyond what we understand in our current scientific framework.
That's great. Thanks so much. We've gone a little bit over, so unfortunately we're going to have to say goodbye, but I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Dax Urbszat for leading this really fascinating session about the world of lucid dreaming, and to all of you for joining us too. We really hope you enjoyed the webinar. You'll receive an email soon that includes a link to the recording as well as some tips from Dax on how to practice lucid dreaming. The email is also going to include a survey link. We'd love to hear your feedback, so please take a moment to send us respond to that quick survey. Should you have any questions at all or would like to receive some information about our resources in psychology, feel free to reply to any of the webinar emails that you've received. Those emails come to me, or you can contact your local account manager. On behalf of the team at McGraw-Hill, thanks again for joining us, and hope you have an amazing day.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.